Welcome to Fantasy Football Live, presented by Ram Trucks. Andy Behrens, Matt Harmon, Tera Roberts. I'm Jason Fitz. It's championship week, which means if you're watching this right now, you had a better fantasy football season than I did. I'm just saying, I get it. We're going to get you ready over the next course of the hour. It's been a wild weekend. It's the 19th season of Fantasy Football Live, and this is our season finale. We're not cutting onions over here. You're cutting onions. I'm not crying. Andy Behrens, I wish I could reach through the screen and give you a hug. This season has been a delight, my friend. Just getting to hang out with you every single weekend.
It has been a delight, hasn't it? This has been a fun, very fun edition of the show. I gotta say, I don't actually have a lot to look forward to today. I got Lad McConkey'd yesterday in a pretty severe manner, so we're just trying to close the season respectably with a couple of second place finishes.
I feel like you could just walk by houses and hear, "Oh, come on," all weekend as we watch people. There's already a bunch of games being played. We're watching people out of this thing. Tera, the vibes. Is this your first year with us coming together, this big group of four for us? How are we feeling? Did we live up to your expectations?
Absolutely. I couldn't have asked for more. Everything was wonderful. The entire season was wonderful. Like Andy, I didn't get McConkey'd. I got burrowed this week. So we'll just pause on this week and then judge by everything before that. So yeah, fantastic up until now.
All right. So if you got McConkey'd and Tera got burrowed, Harmon, what'd you get?
Honestly, it's been such a long week 17. Who the hell even knows what happened to me, several days ago when this week actually began? I mean, the turnaround from Packers-Saints, which was an emotional evening for me because of how invested I am in Jaden Reed, in Jordan Love, to then quickly we're playing week 17 games like Christmas Day. That feels like a whole different lifetime ago. I was a different person. Fitz, I'm sure you were a different person. So, I mean, this is the longest week I feel like in NFL history. And then the reward is we get to a Sunday with Mason Rudolph, Mac Jones, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Kenny Pickett, CeeDee Lamb's out of the mix, Chuba Hubbard's out of the mix. I mean, what a mess. Week 17 is a disaster.
Yeah, we had 2 Wednesday games, a Thursday game, a handful of Saturday games, a partridge and a pear treats, all been given to us. All right, we're going to get you caught up on the net. What you need to know, get involved, use the hashtag AskFFL. We're still here in the chat. Hang out with us there. Scott Piatowski is handing out championship fantasy advice. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can here on the show. But we start with some injury updates, the latest, greatest info. You got to know your actives and inactives. You see it there. Devontae Adams active with the hip injury. Malik Neighbors hip. Alvin Kamara inactive. Tony Pollard inactive. Let's take a look at some of the late games there. Some big names on this one too. Tua Tagovailoa doubtful in that game. Jalen Waddle questionable. Jameis Winston questionable. Shoulder will be inactive. And then Christian Watson with the knee injury unlikely to play. We'll keep you updated on the info as we get it. But let's get to some top fantasy storylines for what's left of Week 17. Tera, give us your top fantasy storylines for the juggernaut of games we still have ahead of us.
Yeah, we mentioned all the bad quarterbacks that are starting, but we've got this beautiful rematch, Green Bay versus Minnesota 2.0. I want to know what Green Bay's offense looks like in this matchup because, again, a lot of these late season divisional matchups are coming just a couple of weeks after the first matchup, but Green Bay and Minnesota, they're very unique because the last time we saw this matchup was way back in week 4, so things are a little bit different now. We've got Josh Jacobs, who has pretty much become the lifeline of this incredible Green Bay offense here. But way back in week 4, Green Bay was extremely pass heavy. Jordan Love and Jaden Reed both finished as the overall QB2, overall wide receiver 2. And for Jacobs, that was actually his second worst performance of the fantasy season. So what happens here in week 17? Do we get a shootout rematch? Do the Packers lean on Josh Jacobs? There's so many different directions this can head, and I cannot wait to see the fantasy outcome here.
Yeah, that's the Wizard of Oz game. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. We got this one good game. Everybody pay attention to it. Andy Behrens, what do you got for us as the top fantasy storyline?
Well, Fitz, you closed Thursday's show with some Sam Laporta hype, so I'm going to return the courtesy today. Brock Bowers is going to break some records. One of those records is the rookie tight end receiving yardage record, which has stood for over 60 years and is held by Mike Ditka, a name from the distant past. There are not many passing or receiving records that have actually survived the modern era, but 1,076 yards by a rookie tight end is one of the very few. Doesn't sound like a ton, actually, and he's playing a 17-game schedule and all the rest, but this is actually a big deal. 63-year-old records don't fall every day in the NFL, and we should appreciate it when they do. Bowers is already over 100 receptions. He's going to break Puka Nakua's rookie catch record as well, but he's not going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, of course. That's another award that we have sort of collectively decided needs to go to quarterbacks. But I feel like we should give Bowers this one day and appreciate a historic season. It's been tremendous. There have been very few right answers at tight end this year, and he's clearly one of them. It's just been outrageously good. And when that team settles on a correct answer at quarterback, he might just rule the position for a few seasons.
Yeah, he should win rookie. Let's just be honest. Jaden, who never heard of him. All right, Harmon, give me what you got. What's your top fantasy storyline this weekend?
Well, I'm not going to directly talk about Jaden Daniels, but you mentioned there's only one good game, that Packers-Vikings game on the slate here, Fitz. I would say that Falcons-Commanders is a pretty good one, too. And we've got Michael Penix on the other side of this thing against Washington, basically playing both for the NFC South title and for a lot of people's fantasy titles out there. And look, like I mentioned, Christmas Day felt as if it was ancient history. Us sitting on the couch together, Fitz, when Michael Penix was drafted by the Falcons and being shocked at that moment, that feels like ancient history for sure. And especially because now after watching Penix and watching Kirk Cousins all season, I feel pretty good that the Falcons have Michael Penix in the fold here. It was just one start. It was against the Giants, who are, barely an NFL team at this point. But I came away from last week pretty impressed by what I saw with Penix, at least that he's going to keep the ship afloat here. Pressured 9 times, took 0 sacks, didn't put the ball in harm's way. I mean, he threw it to Kyle Pitts. That's maybe putting the ball in harm's way. But as a Drake London fantasy manager, as somebody that's got Bijan Robinson on a team out there, I feel pretty good that Michael Penix can deliver the ball downfield and actually lift the ceiling of this offense. It was a very, very important real life and fantasy football matchup on Sunday Night Football.
I love that. Also, remember way back when we thought Kyle Pitts was a good football player? Okay. All right. Let's get on to helping everybody with some last-minute pickups and plays for the chip. That's right. You got the chance at the chip, and we want to help you. Andy Behrens, give me a last-minute pickup that's still out there and available that people can get that will help them win their trophies.
Yeah, I'm not always a huge fan of dipping into the waiver wire for randoms in championship week, but plenty of us have been just in the tight end wilderness all season. If that's you, then I think Titans tight end Chig Okonkwo can help. After a mostly quiet season, and honestly a mostly quiet career, Okonkwo is suddenly a target magnet. He's drawn 21 targets over the past 2 weeks. He's caught 17 for 140 yards. We just don't have a lot of tight ends out there doing that. Some of this has been game flow, obviously. Tennessee has been in shootouts with the Colts and the Bengals over the last 2 weeks. Some of it is also just the fact that Okonkwo is a bit of a playmaker. We've seen the big playability previously, but he's always been attached to a bad quarterback situation as a secondary receiver. He's still dealing with the unfortunate QB, but it's tough to argue with the recent volume. Also tough to argue with this week's matchup against Jacksonville. That is the league's most generous pass defense. It's also a team that's allowed the 7th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. So it's a great spot. If you're hurting at a very messy position, again, many of us are, Okonkwo is a great answer in title week.
And shockingly, that's not the only time we're about to mention the Titans. Harmon, give everybody a last-minute pickup out there for you.
Yes, I am going to stick on the Tennessee Titans, and I'm also with Andy that I'm not going to sit here and waste your time. Unless you're playing for the consolation bracket, you don't need to be picking up wide receivers or running backs. You got to have a better option than some of those goofballs on the waiver wire. But you might need to stream a defense, and I do think the Tennessee Titans defense is viable when you're looking at widely available streamers this week. This is not a perfect stop unit. I'm not going to give you a big defensive breakdown on what the Titans are doing, although at times I thought they were frisky, especially earlier in the season, being disruptive up front. I think they can be disruptive in this matchup here, especially against Mac Jones, who has thrown 7 interceptions across his 5 starts. He's actually kind of a perfect quarterback to stream against because he's not just going to turtle up. He's not completely useless. He will push the ball downfield. He will try to get it to Brian Thomas in some one-on-one situations. He will also miss Brian Thomas in some of those one-on-one situations. So he can keep this game high scoring. He can throw a couple to the other defense. He can take a few sacks. I think he's a rather perfect quarterback to stream against right now. And the Tennessee Titans defense, like I said, is widely available if you're looking to stream a defense in your fantasy championship.
Look at all this Titans love. That's the best week of the season for the Titans. All right, Tera Roberts, give us something that's out there for you. Last minute pickup.
Yeah, they're giving you Titans love. I'm giving you Carolina love. So I don't know if I'm doing much better on that end. But if you need a quarterback with some upside this week, you can turn to Bryce Young. Coming off of his best game of the season, scoring 27 fantasy points and finishing as the QB2. Now, despite throwing for just 158 yards, his rushing ability is what is really driving that production there, and touchdowns are flowing as well. He sealed Arizona's fate. Now, Carolina has improved in the second half of the season. Young really does offer top 10 upside this week in a great matchup against Tampa Bay. In their Week 13 meeting, he had a season-high 46 attempts, nearly 300 yards, 2 total touchdowns, finishing as the QB8. There is real potential for him this time around. He is one of my favorite streaming options at quarterback if you need a high upside option or if you're dealing with injuries or a little bit shaky on what you've got on your roster.
All right, Andy Behrens, Tera Roberts, you guys get to take a little break, but I miss Matt Harmon when I blink. So let's go to Make Your Pick. Harmon will help you make some decisions on what you need to know about your rosters. All right, let's start with a question from Rory. Rory Anderson asked first. Play 2, full PPR. Garrett Wilson, Devon H. Jerome Ford, Isaac Roendo, Khalil Shakir. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Achane's the obvious one here. I get it. The offensive ceiling might be a little bit depressed with no Tua under center. Unbelievable just what's happened with the quarterback position all week or all season long for this Dolphins team. But he's still going to get some of those scammy receptions, in my opinion. So in a full PPR, I just think he's too far and away the best option here. I guess it's a little bit tough between like a Garrett Wilson type and maybe an Isaac Guerendo because we've seen the ceiling of Guerendo and it's really useful in fantasy. But I'm going to stick with Garrett Wilson in this matchup. You know, there's news that he might request a trade or something. For him and Aaron Rodgers' relationship, all this stuff. I think Wilson's probably your second starter right now, and they need to keep him happy and keep him involved here.
What drama with the Jets? I never would have imagined. All right, the next question from Casey Anderson. Half PPR, no Lamb, need 2 wide receivers. Williams, Thelen, McMillan, Reed. What do you think, Harmon?
Yeah, this one's pretty spicy too. I'm actually going to try to go a little bit of a mix of floor and ceiling here for the floor play. I think Adam Thielen, I mean, this is bizarre to say, but he feels like the best option of the group here. He's going against that ultra generous Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that plays the most zone coverage in the league. Adam Thielen can still get open against zone. He's been Bryce Young's favorite target, and he had a really high scoring, high target game against this Bucs defense earlier in the year. For the ceiling play, for me, it is between Jaden Reed and Jamison Williams. And because there's no Christian Watson in that Packers matchup, and maybe also because I desperately need Jaden Reed to have a big game against the Minnesota Vikings, we're going Jaden Reed. It's the type of matchup where I think he can get open underneath and can make some plays in a yards after catch situation.
I love the honesty there, the transparency with your own needs. Let's get one of him from Brandon. Brandon says, full point PPR, need 2 of the 3. Jennings, London, Spears. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm going to go Drake London and Tajay Spears here. For Drake London, like I mentioned, the fact that Penix showed the arm strength to deliver the ball deep outside the numbers from the far hash to the field, that is incredibly impressive. Again, that unlocks the ceiling of this offense. But he also showed a little bit of the accuracy over the middle, which was a nice little surprise. And that's where Drake London's primarily going to eat against Washington. And for Spears, with no Tony Pollard, I think he just becomes kind of like a must-start player against the Jacksonville defense that's been rather hopeless all year long.
Got a question coming in from the YouTube chat. Want to get it in here from No Way Jose. Says, ask FFL, Mike Evans or St. Brown? Started Collins earlier, so needing one of these 2 to carry me in the championship. What do you think?
Oh, man. No way, Jose. You're making me choose between 2 great options here, in great situations. I do think Mike Evans has a monstrous ceiling available against the Carolina Panthers, but the guy I would rank higher is St. Brown, who has been one of the 3 most productive receivers in fantasy this year. High target total potential. He should eat in the slot against the San Francisco 49ers. So, yeah, you're definitely putting a big potential ceiling spot for Mike Evans on your bench, but St. Brown's just the guy I'd rank higher.
All right, Harmon and I are going to spend some time just reminiscing over the course of the season and how wonderful it's been to work together. So we'll let Andy and Tera take some fantasy face-off about Jalen McMillan.
Yeah, that's right. Final face-off of the season involves Jalen McMillan, who, man, there are a lot of questions that have come in over the past week or so on McMillan. He's taken us on a journey, Tera. He has 4 touchdowns in his last 3 games. Over 50 receiving yards each week. He's clearly the number 2 receiving option on the Bucs these days, and that has been a fantasy relevant role basically all season. He also gave away a touchdown that turned into an interception against Dallas. Just a brutal play that Tampa Bay could not afford. It's not entirely clean with McMillan, but fantasy-wise, he's been great. So let's consider McMillan, and how about another guy in the same game, Adam Thelen? Who do you like?
Yeah, this one is easy for me, and I don't mean that as any offense to Jalen McMillan, because I actually do like him a lot, and I do believe in the production here. But Tampa Bay has given me zero reason to believe that they are capable of stopping anyone, and that very much so includes Carolina, as I talked about with Bryce Young. I mean, last time we saw these two teams play, Thielen had 8 receptions for 99 yards and a touchdown. I expect that to repeat, maybe even a bit more there. Been a big supporter of Bryce Young this season in his development, and Adam Thielen remains the top option there. So I'm leaning Thielen on this one.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think Thielen has an incredibly high floor this week against a very generous defense. And on floor alone, I would go Thielen. How about Jalen McMillan or Devontae Smith? Devontae obviously gets Kenny Pickett at quarterback, which doesn't seem ideal. But on the other hand, Kenny Pickett basically only threw the ball to A.J. Brown and Devontae last week.
Yeah, I just don't know how much I trust it. And this is, again, in any other scenario with any other quarterback, well, maybe almost any other quarterback, with many other quarterbacks, this would be Devonta Smith. But I just trust Baker Mayfield in a matchup against Carolina where touchdowns should be plentiful between both of these teams more than I trust Kenny Pickett. They could easily just aggressively rely on Saquon Barkley. Again, under normal circumstances, this is Devonta, but given the fact that we have seen improvement in that Dallas secondary, they've pulled themselves together. I can't trust Pickett. I got to lean towards McMillan on this one, purely based off that quarterback play.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of disagreement here. I think McMillan much more likely to score. I just have that streak of Kenny Pickett games from years past in which he could never, ever throw a touchdown pass. I can't get that out of my head. One last name here. McMillan or Khalil Shakir. He was quiet a week ago, but had touchdowns in his previous 2 games, having a great year. He's obviously tied to an MVP quality quarterback, probably dealing with some weather conditions today, however.
Yeah, and weather conditions, that always makes you kind of tilt a direction on that one. But even then, I kind of still lean towards McMillan, but it's extremely, extremely close, especially because I do believe this is going to be a bounce back Josh Allen everything game. But sometimes those Josh Allen everything games don't actually include the receivers on that one. So I'm leaning McMillan on a smidge here. Andy, how about you? Is this one as close, or am I crazy here?
Yeah, no, it's almost a coin flip. I believe I have them back to back in the ranks. I've got McMillan a little bit higher on the touchdown potential. I don't think it's close in real life. I love Khalil Shakir. I think he's a wonderful player, but the weather conditions worry me just a little bit in that game, and the possibility that we'll just get one of those Josh Allen, multiple rushing touchdown sort of games. All right, let's send it back to Fitz and see if we can bring the full squad in here.
Yeah, we're going to bring the full squad in here. We're going to get to some fantasy game changers for this week, powered by Ram Trucks, where we're identifying some of the most impactful players in one of the top fantasy matchups on the schedule. Your fantasy championship may very well come down to the drama known as Monday Night Football. Detroit visiting Levi Stadium to take on the Niners. Detroit's still playing for the top seed in the NFC. It's going to be a balmy 52 degrees. The Lions favored by 3.5. The over-under, a whopping 50.5 on this one. When I say fantasy game changer to you, Matt Harmon, you say...
Oh, man, I say Jahmyr Gibbs, Lions running back. A couple weeks ago, after Dave Montgomery went down on the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, Dalton Del Don said that he wouldn't take another back over Jahmyr Gibbs the rest of the fantasy season. I've never needed Dalton to be more right about a statement ever than him to be correct about this one. And after 1 week, it's looking pretty good on that call. Jahmyr Gibbs led all running backs last week in expected fantasy points in the first 3 quarters of that game, because obviously they didn't have to do much to beat Andy's Bears. He played 73.6% of the snaps. He had 84% of the team carries and a near 15% target share. It wasn't like, okay, Dave Montgomery's out, let's mix in another running back. No, forget that. They just built the whole thing out of Jahmyr Gibbs. And I think Gibbs has played so awesome this year that he absolutely deserves that type of treatment. The Niners' run defense is pretty hit or miss. They particularly struggle to defend some of those perimeter runs that Gibbs has been great on. He got goal line carries last week. He definitely checks the box of the RB1 this week. I'm saying it. I need it to be true. Let's do it, Jahmyr Gibbs.
This section is now manifesting with Matt Harmon. All right, Tera Roberts, give us your fantasy game changer.
I'm not manifesting here. I just want to give it a little appreciation to Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is the 4th most average fantasy points per game for a receiver, and yet I feel like he's somewhat overlooked. He's often looked at as having this limited upside because of the nature of his role in playing in arguably, as Matt just talked about, one of the most stacked offenses in the NFL, yet has multiple overall wide receiver 1 finishes, has over 100 receptions on significantly less targets than other top receivers like Jahmyr Chase, and has double-digit touchdowns. He has shifted his game to be able to put up strong numbers, even when he's not getting those massive targets that he was getting way back in 2023. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the game changer for me here.
All right, Andy Behrens, let's remind the world there are 2 teams involved in this matchup. Give me a fantasy game changer, maybe from the other side.
Yeah, I hyped a non-Iowa tight end at the top of the show, so I must restore balance now. Let's talk about George Kittle. He's having, thank you very much. He's having one of the best seasons of his career. Many things have gone wrong for the Niners this season, obviously, but he is not among them. Kittle is actually in a dogfight with Brock Bowers to finish as the tight end 1 overall for the season. One of them obviously doing it with volume, the other doing it with touchdowns, big playability. They've both been very consistent. Kittle actually has the highest catch rate of his career, the highest yards per target, the 2nd highest touchdown total, and he may yet get to the best touchdown total of his career. He's about to clear 70 catches and 1,000 yards for the season. He will very likely do it this week. The Lions have actually, I'll give them credit for this, they've allowed the fewest fantasy points to opposing tight ends this season, but it is also a compromised defense at this point. And they haven't really faced any great tight ends this year. Kittle is by far the best they will have seen. He's only got 3 games this year in which he hasn't reached double-digit fantasy points. So I think you can expect another on Monday night.
Andy Behrens wins the MVP for the show for saying compromised defense. That's the nicest way to describe what's happened to the Lions defense I've heard all season long. All right, let's huddle everybody up. It's time for some hurry-up offense. We're going to put 25 seconds on the clock. We're going to blow through as many questions as we possibly can. And we start with Negan saying, ask FFL, obviously the real one. Who do I start in PPR? Garrett Wilson, Jawan Jennings, or Devonta Smith? What do you think, Harmon?
Oh, man, I'm trying not to get hit by that bat, baby. This is a lot of pressure. I think I'm going to go Garrett Wilson in this one. Just don't have a lot of faith in the Niners offense at this point. And Devonta Smith's always risky, even with Jalen Hurts back there. So I'll go Garrett Wilson for this one.
Harmon, you could always be our leader in the zombie apocalypse. Jason Blake is up next. I need to start 1 wide receiver and 1 flex in the ship. Options: Thelen, Mooney, McMillan, Jerome Ford, Madison, and ETN. What do you think, Tera?
For wide receiver, 100% Thelen. We talked about the level of upside that he has here. And for the flex, if you need safety, you can go with Jerome Ford based off pure volume. Otherwise, I might kind of shoot for the moon there with Darnell Mooney.
All right, Andy Behrens, you're up with the next one, and it comes from SBNY. Now that they're calling for thunderstorms the entire game in Tampa Bay, would you play golf at San Francisco Monday Night Football over Mayfield? Thunder Buddies. What do you think, Andy?
Okay, listen, not a meteorologist, not qualified to discuss the weather necessarily, but I think we've actually avoided the worst of the weather conditions for that particular game. It's going to be messy all over the place, but I don't think that one's terrible. I would still go Mayfield here.
Okay, and then they'll get another question from Sarath, we'll say. Says, Brenton Strange, Chigakonkwo, or Tucker Kraft? What do you think, Harmon?
Yeah, I've not quite kept up with the Chigakonkwo revival as Andy and some other fantasy analysts out there, but it certainly does seem like he's been getting a decent bit of volume. That's probably the answer I would go. I got burned by Brenton Strange last week, and Tucker Kraft is a high upside, low floor option.
All right, get one in from the YouTube chat here. Ron C. 137. Ask FFL. A.J. Brown with Pickett or Brian Thomas Jr. with Mac in the rain? Oh, God. Tera, what do you think?
Oh, that's tough because I love both of those options there. I will say, at least, I think we still get hyper targeting there with A.J. Brown, with Pickett first look. I'm not sure he'll go far beyond that. So I would still go with A.J. Brown on that one.
All right, the next question in the YouTube chat comes from Lil Moo. Ooh. For the championship, half PPR, Spears or White? Thanks, guys. Andy Behrens, what do you think?
Yeah, let's go, Lil Moo. Let's win this thing. I'm going to go Tyjae Spears here. Again, a full workload ahead of him with no Tony Pollard this week. Rachaad White, very good season, but he is kind of a secondary back right now behind the young legend, Bucky Irving.
I still need Lil Moo to tell us where Big Moo is. Just want to know where that one exists. The next question in the YouTube chat comes from Pug Dieterson, another name I love. Need some expert level advice to secure the chip. That means Harmon, you're up. Start Dolphins D with no Tua or Raiders D against the Saints after the dud they had last week.
So Dolphins or Raiders defense? I mean, I think I'm gonna go. That's tough. That's a tough one. I think I'm gonna go Dolphins though.
Well, I had hope, and then all of a sudden, Raziel, 820, one of our favorites, says Spears, White, Dowdle have Bucky, so wondered about playing both. Another team, Spears or Ford. Thanks to all. That's a lot, Tara. What do you think?
Yeah, my ADD is going to get me on this one. Spears for sure on that first one. It's not that I don't like Rachaad White, but I would still lean towards the volume with Spears. And then on the other one, I forget what it was. I told you my ADD was going to get me on that second one.
Spears or Ford? Spears or Ford is the other one.
Spears or Ford. I'll still go with Spears. No Tony Pollard. Let's go on that one.
I really blame Raziel as much as we love him contributing to the chat. 2 questions in one is kind of cheating. All right, go to the next question from Chris Kim. Chris Kim says, need one for flex. Lost Chuba. Blackshear, Shakir, or Devonta? Ask FFL. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, listen, we're just guessing with Blackshear. I wouldn't do it. We're down to like the 4th running back in Carolina. I can't chase volume like that. I'm gonna go Khalil Shakir here. It's been a wonderful season. Could have some weather conditions, but I think it may actually play in his favor.
I just love the shirt. Could be. Yeah, could be. All right, Tony in Tampa D versus Carolina with no Hubbard, or Dallas D with Philly with no Hurts. What do you think, Harmon?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Dallas's defense here, mostly because, you're talking about no running back or no quarterback. Not having the quarterback back there matters a lot. And Dallas's defense has played really good football ever since Micah Parsons has been healthy. They've been trending up over there. So that's a good defense against a bad quarterback.
Look, Harmon has already told you that he believes Falcons-Commanders is a great game over the course of the weekend. It absolutely could be, and he's not the only person that thinks that. Football 301, one of our great podcasts on Yahoo Sports, broke down the Sunday night matchup between the two teams and talked a little bit about Jaden Daniels. Check it out.
I think this is going to be a really good game for Jaden Daniels to kind of nickel and dime and run around a little bit, like you said. Like, I think this is it's a team, like if they go tempo, the Falcons run a cover 3. Like that's kind of like their like panic call. Well, what the Commanders do when they get that is that's the go balls to Terry McLaurin. So, all right, we get Terry against non-AJ Terrell, and then we go tempo, and we get single high, all right, boom, touchdown. Like I already can picture that in my head. So I do think that this Falcons defense actually tackles pretty well underneath, but I just think the Commanders have a lot of nice natural answers.
Yeah, I think Jaden Daniels is able to make enough plays that just kind of kill you at the end, whether it's third down scrambles or a go ball, where maybe you can get him on first and second down, but the plays where his talent gets to shine and things could be tough for the defense.
Introducing Daily Draw, the latest free-to-play game from Yahoo Sports. Daily Draw gives you a pack of 6 prediction cards every day based on the day's biggest sporting event. Download or update the Yahoo Sports app on the Apple App Store or Google Play and join the action with Daily Draw today.
Daily Draw, one of my favorite things. Check it out in the app. Who's hot? Who's not? Let's take a look at some of the top performers from championship weekend so far. Guys got you drinking out there. Joe Burrow with almost 37 points, but fear not. T. Higgins, almost 35 points. Great if you stack those two together. Lamar Jackson, 29.4. And yes, people all across the country last night got ladded or McConkeyed. Either way, 25.4 points in that one. Absolutely great work by them. Let's get into some MVP performers. Like when I think MVP, I think Andy Behrens, I think Matt Harmon, I think Tera Roberts. Like we think MVP. Let's talk about the best of the best. It's been a surprising year. We've had all sorts of performances we didn't expect. Let's crown some fantasy MVPs for 2024. Matt Harmon, as our king, you can go first.
Oh my God, so much pressure with that kind of title, but I'm going to go with the king, I think, of fantasy this year at the running back position, which is Saquon Barkley. Crazy to think that you could have taken Saquon Barkley in the very back half of the first round, Maybe. He went in the second round in a variety of leagues because people were afraid of, I don't know. I mean, afraid of like the tush push. And they've been pushing tush up there in Philadelphia this year. Jalen Hurts has gotten pushed into the end zone plenty of times. And Saquon Barkley has still been an extremely dynamic performer in real life, in fantasy football. He has been a do-it-all talent. Sometimes it really is just this simple. Running back, great talent. Situation, great ecosystem. That equals fantasy football running back 1, top scorer at the position. Again, was not a consensus top 4 back in fantasy this year. So you got him at a great value. He's been everything you could have wanted and more. And things are still working out for the Philadelphia Eagles. So Saquon Barkley is my fantasy MVP this year.
You just worked push and tush into your analysis, which means you are the true fantasy MVP. I'm jealous. I didn't think of it. I think it should be sent out as Yahoo notifications to everybody every time that score happens from now on. Tera Roberts, give us your MVP. No pressure. Push and tush is hard to top, but we got this. Let's go for it.
It's hard to top push and tush and Saquon Barkley, but my fantasy MVP is Josh Jacobs for the best value MVP here, because the lack of faith that everyone had around Josh Jacobs heading into the season, I just want to give a special shout out to him as this MVP, because it's great to be an MVP when you were a top pick, but to do so when nearly everyone immediately wrote you off here. When the Packers drafted Marshawn Lloyd, there were 10,000 justifications as to why Josh Jacobs would be irrelevant this year. They said he was washed at 26. The audacity of that. They poke holes in his contract. They told you to fade him. And Josh Jacobs might not have had the insane ceiling of Saquon Barkley, but he has just one game below 10 fantasy points, and that was with Malik Willis at quarterback. And since the Packers bye week, he has just one finish outside of the top 6. That is insane, and that is the game that they pulled him because they were just beating the Saints so badly here. He deserves a ton of respect for the incredible year that he has had here.
I love both those calls, and I'll continue the running back love. I mean, this has been the resurgent year of the running back. We've all talked about that. But when I think of MVP, part of what I think about, especially in the fantasy world, is what we expected coming in. And there were so many people talking about Derrick Henry hitting a wall, talking about Derrick Henry not going to be that guy. You know, yeah, he'd still be good for the Ravens, but he wouldn't be great for the Ravens. I think all of that has been put to rest. Hell, the only way I've won anything that I've won on this show in our snake drafts is when I've been lucky enough to draft Derrick Henry. For that reason and up, he's the MVP for me. But really, when you look at the way he's carried the ball, when you look at the way that they built the offense around him, and when you look at the fact that even with the 2-time, maybe soon to be 3-time NFL MVP, it has been Derrick Henry so often that has had to really be the workhorse for this Ravens team and has done it in a way that's been so good. My MVP, simply because of the expectations and the wall that was supposedly hit coming in, Derrick Henry. Andy Behrens, give us your MVP.
Yeah, I'm going to go Ja'Marr Chase simply because of his utter domination of his position. Entering week 17, Chase had a nearly 60-point fantasy lead over the second highest scoring wide receiver, Justin Jefferson. He is 130 points clear of the wide receiver 10 on the season. He's just offered the greatest positional advantage in the game. There are only like 20 wide receivers who have even reached 50% of Chase's fantasy total this year. Saquon clearly giving us a historic season, but he hasn't totally shaken Derrick Henry. There have been a bunch of right answers at running back, but one very clear right answer at wide receiver. It's not just that he's winning the receiving triple crown. It's that no one's really all that close to him in at least 2 of the categories. He has a 4-touchdown lead. He's over 200 receiving yards clear of number 2. And I guess the final argument for Chase is that he's had 8 straight huge fantasy games. His worst fantasy performance dating back to like week 10 is 9 catches for 94 yards. People were complaining yesterday because he only gave them 9 catches for 102. That's just MVP stuff.
All right, before we move on real quick, I got a couple of questions in the YouTube chat I want to get in. One comes from Jeff. And really, when you say it this way, he says, all hail Overlord Harmon. So this is going to go to Matt Harmon, the Overlord now, not just King.
Wow.
Is today the day where Mr. Jalen Coker rewards all of us Coker heads in the Cokerverse?
Sure as hell could be, buddy. I mean, that defense there in Tampa Bay is, as I've said all year, ultra generous. So us Coker heads could be partying. Absolutely. Very possible.
That was well handled by you. Tera, let's get a quick one into you. Downs or Reed PPR, Miami, Tampa Bay, or Indy DST? Even special team.
You're gonna get me on a ADD again here. I'm going with Jaden Reed for the upside here. Downs is definitely the safer option here, but Reed in this potential matchup in the upside that he has, I have to lean that direction. And then for the defenses, I want to say I heard Miami, which would be one of the highest ones that I have ranked there. So Miami's defense is where we're sticking.
Love it. All right. One of the biggest storylines from this past fantasy season was the rise in near collapse of greatness. During our primetime picks contest this season, we learned a few important things. One, Jerry Jeudy is obviously one of the most important players in the NFL, if not the universe. Number two, total points don't really matter, Andy. And number three, Tera Roberts, who led the contest for most of the season, is one of the nicest subtle trash talkers in the history of fantasy football.
It's been fun waiting for my picks here at the turn while you guys just kind of argue it out here. I should stop talking crap before I have a bad week. You guys, how did you let Wan'Dale Robinson slip to me? This pick, actually, am I being sarcastic? A little bit. I'm feeling great, Fitz. Honestly, I'm just trying to follow in your footsteps here, keeping the tradition alive, and it's going exactly to plan. Yeah, by the way, you guys are killing me on this one. I wish I could participate in the trash talk, but it's been tough. I'm not trying to rub it in your face. I've just been in first place for such a long time. Try to stay extremely positive about the fact that I'm just dragging everybody. It helps to make up for the fact that I was one of those people that was Terry McLaurin on Thursday. So thank you so much, and let me get the win again to keep me in happy spirits.
For I think only the second time all season, Tera is not in first place. This is wild, a shock.
Yeah, I'm in pain, and I want to raise a conspiracy theory here because usually, there's so many top tier running backs to pick from. Why is there's no Saquon and Derrick Henry and where are those running backs? I'm reeling. I don't want to talk about total points. I want to get the win here. Just call me the 2023 Philadelphia Eagles because my late season collapse here has it's been epic. I want to save myself. Going to take Brian Thomas coming off his career best performance there, and I'm gonna pick Bucky Irving here. I mean, we've talked about him so glowingly this entire episode, so hopefully it comes through here. And I'm gonna go with Romeo Doubs here. I could do worse. I could do worse in this pick, and Romeo Doubs is coming off a 2-touchdown performance. Am I confident in him? Absolutely not, but it is the best option left. So what can go wrong?
Well, nothing went wrong because check it out. Yet again, I came in second place, son of a biscuit. Tera gets 43 points last week, giving her fifth win. There were two ways Andy Behrens could win. If I won or he won, and neither of those were accomplished. But we should give Andy Behrens a shout out for being the leader in total points. Who was in second in total points? It didn't matter. I finished in last in this thing. Tera Roberts, you are the champion. Tera, would you like to give the world a speech?
I would. Oh my gosh, I'm so unprepared because I wasn't expecting.
Sorry, we're out of time for the speech.
Highlight reel. Thank you, everyone, so much. It was touch and go there, but we came through. All part of my master plan here. Exactly how I expected it to go. Thank you, Brian Thomas.
Here's what I know. I've been on this show for 2 seasons. I've yet to see Harmon and Andy win a damn thing. So I think something's happening to the newbies. Maybe two straight. Go ahead, Harmon. You got something you want to say?
Let me just be clear here that the entire reason last week I advocated for Jags and Raiders to be a part of the proceeding was so that I, at the 3rd overall pick, could draft Brian Thomas. Tera took him before me, but you know what? As a proud member of the #NeverBehrens party, as long as he doesn't win this thing, I'm fine with it. Congratulations to Tera. I guess whatever, Fitz, you did something last year. That's fine, not important. We're living in the now. So congratulations to Tera. #NeverBehrens.
Wow. Shout out to Alexander Madison. That was my best pick last week, as it turned out.
Here's the number of times I went into Monday thinking, man, I got a shot at this, only to lose is really uncanny. It really encapsulates my entire year. Congratulations, Sarah. If I had a crown or a trophy or belt, I would send it to you so that you could continue the tradition. Here's what I know. as this show continues to grow next year, we'll have 5 people on the show, and whoever the new person is will win yet again, because Harmon and Behrens don't actually win this contest ever. Maybe we should mix it up for them next year. Maybe we'll give them a 1 week head start or something. I don't know. Okay.
Oh, shut
If you're like me,
the next segment.
Okay. Harmon has asked me to move along. How many points? Oh, yeah. Okay. If you're like me, the fantasy playoffs ended before they began. So we're going to look ahead to next year. It's time for our way too early first round mock for next season. Lots of candidates who should or could be the top overall pick in fantasy drafts. We did a randomized order on this. It is not a snake draft. This will be helpful. Y'all can save this and help you get ready for your draft. Matt Harmon, for the first overall pick in the way too early first round mock for next season, who do you take, good sir?
Listen, if you people out there thought I was going to come in here after the resurgent year of the running back position as the lead representative of big wide receiver and not take a wide out here at the first overall pick, you were kidding yourselves. Andy gave great analysis of how much of a difference maker Ja'Marr Chase has been this season. I think he should be the number 1 overall pick next year. Nothing's going to change for him. He's going to come right back into a monster workload. He's going to come right back with the quarterback he's been playing with forever. T. Higgins maybe even finds his way back on this team. That's only going to make the Bengals offense better. So there's a lot of volatility, as there always is at running back, no matter what happened this year. I think Chase should be the first overall pick in drafts next season.
Our champion, Tera Roberts, with the second pick. Who do you got in this way too early first round mock?
I 100% agree with Matt, but as the second overall pick, I am going to running back, and I'm going with Saquon Barkley. When you finish as the first overall quarterback, first overall running back, when your quarterback is pushing all that tush, it gives you a right to be the first running back off the board in 2025. Over 1,800 rushing yards. When it's all said and done, it could be over 2,000. Only concern here would be maybe, the career year in terms of carries and maybe having a little bit of a slump, but Saquon has never shown any of those type of tendencies here, so we have to give it to him. The crown of the overall B1, we're going with Saquon here.
I love that pick by you, and I love continuity. If you've listened to Yahoo Sports Inside coverage, you should. If you haven't, I've broken down quite in detail why I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to franchise tag Sam Darnold. I think he's going to be back as their quarterback next year. I like continuity, which means I like Justin Jefferson with the third pick in the draft. He's still Justin Jefferson. I still think that no matter who's throwing the ball to him, he'll be Justin Jefferson. But I think the Vikings have a good shot of bringing basically everybody back. This is not the end. It's the beginning of a window for Minnesota. And I love Justin Jefferson to continue his level of dominance, which means never Behrens, Andy Behrens, you are up next. Who do you like?
I'll take Bijan Robinson, and this is basically where he went in this year's drafts, right? His season has gone almost under the radar because Saquon is doing historic things. Derrick Henry is living in the end zone. But Bijan is going to finish with over 1,800 scrimmage yards this year. His highlights are just absolutely of the highest quality. He's the centerpiece of an ascending offense. So I think he's in a great situation for next season. Could plausibly finish as the overall RB1.
All right, that means we are back to Harmon. Who you got for us?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs here on this one. Like I mentioned earlier, he's shown he can handle a massive workload. Now, David Montgomery's on a contract extension. He's going to be back next year, but the Lions is just such a beautiful ecosystem. And Gibbs, like I said, has shown the ability to be a true running back one, both in the NFL and in fantasy. He doesn't need to dominate the workload to be the 5th overall pick in fantasy drafts next year.
Tara, you're back up on the clock. Who you got?
I got Puka Nacua here. The Rams offense is occasionally peculiar, but there's one thing that is very clear about it. Puka Nacua is the dominating force in the Rams offense, and that is not changing anytime soon. Puka is the wide receiver 5 in average points per game prior to this week, and that average includes 2 games where he played less than 50% of snaps due to injury and ejection. But Puka is for real. He should be a first-round pick. We should have that confidence in him. He has taken over that receiving core and is absolutely dominating.
There are some big-name running backs left for me to take here, but am I going to do that? No! I'm going to be a man of the people, and I'm going to do what everybody does in this situation. I'm going to overdraft somebody from my favorite football team out of sheer hope and manifestation, which means, hey, let's run up to the podium and take Brock Bowers. Come on, at least hear me out on this. If Andy Behrens pointed out that we are on record watch for Brock Bowers, and that was with Gardner and Aiden as quarterback. Like, he can't get any worse at quarterback unless Harmon's lining up behind center. So the way I look at it, it's only going to get better. And next year, when you're going into this thing from day one, there's no Devontae to take touches. Brock Bowers from day one is just going to be a target monster. So much like Cookie Monster, he's going to feast, and I'm going to be happy. Brock Bowers with the overdraft for my heart for manifestation, and then because it's a way too early mock draft. If I can't take him now, when can I take him? Andy Behrens, tell me how brilliant I am, and then go ahead and make your pick.
It's a little bit brilliant. I was thinking about taking Bowers with the final pick of the first round, so I don't hate it. The positional edge is pretty clear. I'm gonna take Derrick Henry at this spot, and man, we're like 7 or 8 months away from a huge percentage of the fantasy analyst community telling you that we can't trust Derrick Henry. He's 31. He's too old. History is against him, all the same things that we've been saying for 2 years. And then Derrick Henry is going to go out and score 16 or 18 touchdowns for the Ravens. At age 30, he just gave us by far the best yards per carry of his career, the second highest rushing total of a Hall of Fame career. He has shown no signs of aging or decline. So I think he's a pretty clear first rounder next season.
I love that call by you. Matt Harmon, you're back up. What do you got for us?
Yeah, Josh Jacobs here for me. Tera made a lot of great points about him talking earlier, and they've just really built the whole thing out of the run game, and it's hard to blame them. Their run game's been fantastic there in Green Bay. Josh Jacobs has been everything that they wanted him to be, which was a guy that they could trust to run multiple run schemes. They could lean into a lot of gap concepts. It just has such a signing that's worked out really well for this team, and I don't expect anything to change next year in terms of the way they structure and design their offense. So I think he's a very worthy first-round pick in fantasy.
All right, Tera, who do you got?
I'm staying on the running back train here with Achane. His rushing numbers obviously dipped this season in terms of efficiency, but his receiving upside rivals that of Alvin Kamara. Very similar there. We have to put some respect on his name. We knew that Achane wouldn't be a high carry back with his utilization, but from a fantasy perspective, it is absolutely insane and perfect. The only thing holding Achane back is potential absences for Tua. Achane's numbers are obviously skewed there by Tua's stint on IR, but when Tua is active, Achane is a top 5 pack. All we need is a competent backup quarterback to be signed, and we are all full systems go here.
I finished my draft the way I've drafted all year by cheating and looking at smarter people's report cards around me. Tera Roberts won this thing, and earlier in the show, she told you about the quiet season that Amon-Ra St. Brown is having. And I look at that and say, all right, when you talk about continuity, what's going to come back? It's still going to be one of the best offensive lines with the quarterback that's going to be able to run whatever the offense looks like, and weapons everywhere for the Lions. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown for my last pick in this draft. Comes in and continues to be exactly who he's been. I don't think anything changes there, which means, Andy Behrens, you get to finalize our way too early first-round mock with one more name.
Yeah, I suppose there are splashier names that I could take, but I'm just going to go CeeDee Lamb. This is a pretty nice discount on his 2024 price, obviously. Lamb will only end up playing 15 games this season. He still gave us over 100 catches, nearly 1,200 yards. He did it with Cooper Rush at the controls for much of the year. He's going to remain the centerpiece of the Cowboys offense. Obviously, one of the top receivers in the game. A very good bet next year for 120 catches, 1,500 yards, double-digit touchdowns.
What I'm sure of is that this is going to be clipped off and sent to the world. And yeah, it's going to go well. This is going to go really perfectly, and absolutely nobody's going to give us grief on it. All right, let's move on to some rookies to watch. There will obviously be some new faces impacting fantasy football drafts next season. So Andy Behrens and I are going to look at this for some rookies to watch. Before we do it real quick, shout out to one comment we just got in the YouTube chat. Eric says, I lost in the semis by 0.12 points. LOL. Thanks to the Yahoo Fantasy team for incredibly entertaining and solid advice. Eric, thanks for watching, man. I really appreciate it. Sorry you lost in your semis. It's heartbreaking, but we appreciate that you guys take the time to watch. Let's look at some rookies to watch, my friend. Give me a name that stands out to you.
Yeah, first of all, it's crazy to ask me, of all people, to talk about non-Big Ten prospects this time of year, but even I am fully aware of Ashton Jeanty. Genty's already rushed for 2,497 yards. What? And he scored 30 touchdowns. And he can still play 2 more games. This kid's going to have like a whole career in the space of one season. That's outrageous. Average rushing total this season for Genty is 192 yards in a game. He's the Maxwell winner. He's a Heisman finalist, averaging over 7 yards per carry. He's caught 77 balls over 3 college seasons, so we know he's a do-it-all back. The balance and escapability are silly. The highlights are just absolutely silly. This is clearly someone who can have a Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs level impact immediately. He looks like the rare first-round running back to me.
Yeah, a lot of mocks already have him being drafted by the Cowboys. I will warn you, I don't think he makes it that far into this draft. So we'll see how that plays out. Give me another name standing out to you.
Yeah, well, I gotta switch to home turf in the Big Ten and mention Caleb Johnson from America's team, from the Iowa Hawkeyes. He was basically the whole offense. Like I'm not even really exaggerating. They're like literally the whole offense. Caleb gained over 1,700 scrimmage yards, scored 23 times, averaged about 6.5 yards per carry, despite seeing loaded boxes on literally every snap. This is a big back, 225 pounds. He's going to crush in a zone running scheme somewhere. He's not a burner, but his vision is pretty amazing. He's got some Lev Bell vibes, I think, the good version of Lev Bell. He can squeeze through gaps that only barely exist. For an Iowa back also, he's about as proven as it gets as a receiver and as a pass protector. This is someone who can thrive in a featured role, I think. A great late game player, too.
All right, give me one more name. Maybe we'll look at somebody not a running back this time.
Yeah, final guy that I want to mention is, I think, one of the most interesting names in the draft. It's Penn State tight end Tyler Warren, who we're going to get to watch in the Fiesta Bowl alongside Genty in just a couple days. Warren is 6'6", he's 250, a ridiculous playmaker. He's caught 92 passes for over 1,000 yards, averaged 8.2 yards per carry as a runner. He's also completed 3 passes this year. He blocks people into the stands. Really fun player. He's a former quarterback. He's like a supersized Taysom Hill, basically, except that he's more of a real tight end. So just an incredibly versatile, multi-tool of a player. I think the dream might be that he lands with Sean Payton, right? The guy who invented the first version of Taysom Hill. We could imagine him with the Chargers as well. He'd be fun there. He'd make a ton of sense for a lot of teams. Any team would take him, really, because he seemingly can do whatever is asked of him.
I wouldn't mind if he stayed out of the AFC West. I'm just saying. Okay. We'll continue to take a look ahead, obviously. But in the meantime, Matt, Tara, why don't you guys jump in and give us some bounce-back candidates for next season with some tough spots?
Yeah, these players we're going to talk about, Tara, they were definitely in some tough spots this year. Did not work out to expectations, but we get to maybe be a little bit optimistic about their outlook in 2025. Or maybe we won't. Maybe it'll still be another bit of a disaster here. So give me your first player that was in a tough spot this year.
My first player is CJ Stroud, and it's weird because we didn't think that he would be in a tough spot coming into the season, but boy, has this been a big sophomore slump for him. Very disappointing with the addition of Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon. We thought this was developing into a super team, and unfortunately, the Texans, despite, being on their way to the playoffs via their terrible division, it's just been a massive struggle for CJ Stroud. The Texans have some offseason work to do. Diggs is a free agent and will be coming off of an injury. Tank Dell's 2025 is at risk. They have to find another option to complement Nico Collins, but they will take a step back, improve their offensive line, put Stroud into better positions, and we'll probably get a nice ADP discount on him as well. Likely checking in as a mid-tier QB2. So he'll be a very interesting late round quarterback strategy pick there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like that call. It just really this year very overinflated ADP for a non-rushing quarterback for CJ Stroud. So he was always, even if it went worse than expected, he was always kind of set up to fail from a fantasy perspective there. Also, a bit of an overinflated ADP was Arizona Cardinals rookie wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., who basically in every draft, both like the sicko freak best ball drafts and like your regular old redraft leagues, he was like a late first, early second round pick bare minimum. That certainly seems a little bit aggressive in hindsight. I was asked last night, like, what is the biggest reason that his production has been held back this year? I would say it's a 4-part answer, and I'd put it in this order in terms of the blame. Number one, I would say Arizona, Drew Petzing, it's not a bad offense, but it's a little bit of a traditional stale offensive design. I also think his role has done him no favor. That is part number 2. It's been pretty static X receiver stuff for way too long in the season. They've only now just kind of started to mix up his deployment and his route tree. Number 3, I would say that Kyler Murray has had forgettable season. Not bad, but again, just kind of league average quarterback play. But I also think that his particular style of quarterback play doesn't really mesh with what is the actual game of Marvin Harrison Jr., which is timing, rhythm, route running over the middle of the field. Kyler is more of just kind of a chuck it up and throw type of player. And that's the point number 4, which is Harrison himself has to own some of the blame here. He has left far too many plays on the field, particularly in contested catch situations. That has been a huge issue for Harrison. I thought it might be like a minor negative in his scouting report. I got that wrong. It has been a huge issue for him as a rookie. That's kind of tough to decide if he's going to bounce back when it's a 4-part reason for why he struggled to meet very high expectations as a rookie, and at least a few of those things are still going to be present. He can absolutely get better in 2025. I actually think he will be a nice little value draft pick because the expectations will be more in line, but he's going to be one of the more interesting players to discuss all offseason, Tera. At this point, I'm not 100% sure where I stand on him.
Yeah, that one's interesting. I'm not going to lie. I might have been one of those people that pushed up that ADP as well. Someone who I feel like in 2025, whose ADP is going to be a screaming value for me is Deebo Samuel. And that is because the general sentiment that I get that people feel around Deebo is that he is washed, but this is not the first time this has happened. Deebo has never had strong back-to-back seasons, and I mean never, actually. Like his solid rookie season followed up by missing half a season, a breakout performance as a top 5 receiver followed by a terrible season, and then bounce back last year, and then here we are yet again. This is just the way he is. So when we're looking at Deebo Samuel coming off yet again another bad season, this is just the cycle of Deebo Samuel. I think he keeps it alive, and it feels like the most basic analysis possible, but this is his pattern here. He will come back, be a fine mid-round draft pick, and have literally league-winning upside for fantasy next year that everybody ends up fading.
Tera, you're a braver person than I, because I think I'm one of these folks that are going to be pretty negative on Deebo in the offseason. But we'll see if he's even on the 49ers next year. He's probably the one of these 3 players that is at risk of maybe moving on in the offseason. But that's enough of the future. Let's bring it back to the present. Let's bring the whole gang in for a little hurry-up offense.
All right, 25 seconds goes on the clock. We put the situations up. Andy Behrens gets the first one from HK. PPR Finals Flex. Need one. Wilson, Thelen, Mooney, or Tracy Jr. for tight end. Hawkinson or Okonkwo. Thanks, Ask FFL. Andy, what do you think?
Man, imagine getting this question like in week 1 after you drafted Garrett Wilson in the first round. That's crazy. I'm gonna take Adam Thielen here. I think he's in the best situation against a really friendly defense. Going to get peppered with targets in full PPR. I definitely want him. Also, give me Hawkinson.
All right, the next question comes from Football 101. Which running back sits this week in a half PPR? Bucky, Taylor, Cook. Playing Gibbs for sure. What do you think, Harmon?
Oh, God, I shouldn't have had such a reaction to that because now I'm really upset that you threw it to me. Yeah, I think Jonathan Taylor's got to be locked in here. I know the run game struggled sometimes with Joe Flacco, but such a good matchup against the Giants. I can't sit Bucky in this matchup either, given how he's playing. So I guess you're not playing James Cook. That feels gross to say.
All right, Tera, you get the next one from John that says, need 2 of Bucky, B. Thomas, or Garrett Wilson. PPR, what do you think?
Well, yeah, this one is a lot less complicated, although I do think that this is a potential squeaky wheel game for Garrett Wilson after all of the drama with Aaron Rodgers. But Bucky has just massive upside in this matchup here, and Brian Thomas as well. We cannot sit him, so it's Bucky and Brian Thomas that you got to go with here.
Jose O says half PPR, pick 2, B-Rob Jr., Spears, Ridley, Reed. What do you think? We'll go to Andy Behrens on this one.
Yeah, again, I want Spears. He's going to be a full workload back this week in a very friendly matchup. And then it gets tough. I'm going to go B-Rob. I'm going to go Robinson Jr. here. Again, I'm banking on touchdowns.
Lacey Lynn asks, who should I play, Love or Darnold or both? Harmon, what do you think?
I mean, if you have the option to play both would be the answer for that one. So I assume this is a super flex, and I don't see how you have a better option than those guys at your flex position unless you're really stacked. I think both those guys are top 10 quarterbacks this week.
Tara, one more in from the YouTube chat. Adam says, playing for third, frowny face. Sorry, buddy. Josh Downs or Garrett Wilson? What do you think?
Again, on that one, I love both of these guys here, but I lean towards Garrett Wilson. Josh Downs is a strong play, but at the same time, I think that we're going to get a nice volume from Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, solid amount of targets. And it actually hasn't been as bad as they're making it seem there. So Garrett Wilson is the guy that I want to go with here.
All right, that does it for this edition and this 19th season of Fantasy Football Live. Special thanks to our tireless crew, led by our unrivaled director, Jason Chan, an amazing human being. Big thanks to Tommy, Phil, John, Jose, Nicole, Alan. Making sure we look and sound our best each and every week. Our all-star production staff has been incredible. Yahoo Studios and our Yahoo Sports product and editorial teams have supported Fantasy Football Live incredibly for 19 seasons. And Dan Harris sits in my ear every single week. He makes this show happen. Without him, we would absolutely not have what we do. We're not going anywhere, though. You can keep up with us all off season. Yahoo Fantasy Forecast is there for you, obviously. All of our NFL shows, including Football 301 and Inside Coverage that I'm a huge part of. So if you've liked our work here, keep checking out all the work we're doing on Yahoo Sports. Good luck in your fantasy championships. Happy New Year. On behalf of everybody that works behind the scenes on this show, Andy Behrens, Matt Harmon, Tera Roberts, I'm Jason Fitz. Thank you so much, not just today, but all year, for watching Fantasy Football Live presented by Ram Trucks.